Wayne?
Wayne?
Board up your windows because it's that time of the year again. Rick and Morty season is upon us, which means we're in store for another 3 months of this show stringing us along with just enough lore and character development to say, I guess I'll come back next year. But this isn't any old Rick and Morty season premiere, no. This is the first Rick and Morty episode in a post-Roiland world, as the two characters are now voiced by Ian Cardoni and Harry Belden respectively. According to a pretty interesting read by Leslie Goldberg over at The Hollywood Reporter, the goal was to make the transition as seamless as possible so that viewers who weren't aware of the behind-the-scenes drama wouldn't even notice. Kinda funny that Roiland's other show, Solar Opposites, went in the exact opposite direction with recasting. But did Rick and Morty succeed at these soundalikes? Well, we got way more of Rick than Morty in this episode, so it's a bit soon to say, but as of right now, my thoughts haven't really changed from when I saw the trailer. They both sound pretty good when they're just talking, but I think Cardoni struggles just a bit with Rick's yelling. It kinda sounds like he's using an inside voice, which throws me off. But I'm sure that's something that'll improve with time. Especially since I assume they just redubbed lines already recorded by Roiland instead of recording with just a script. I also think being 7 seasons deep into the show's run also gives Cardoni and Belden an advantage, as you could argue Rick sounds a bit more mellowed out as he's learning to put his guard down. And Morty sounds like he's getting older, which just makes sense. Now, I want to stress, the search for a new Rick and Morty was not a walk in the park. To quote showrunner Scott Martyr, we heard thousands. It went on for 6 months. It almost went so wide that we debated doing a global hotline, though we knew it would wind up being a prank line. We felt like we needed to go that far and wide. It was harder than we thought. I thought it'd have been easier. Rick was a lot harder than I expected. Everyone sounded like Macho Man Randy Savage, or like a cousin of his. No one sounded exactly like Rick. It was tricky. People had it in splashes, but once you bring them back in, they couldn't do it conversationally, which is what we needed. It was exhaustive. Ian was one of the first people I heard when the search began. He was in first wave. Mark that guy, he's got major flashes of Rick, which was awesome. We found Harry a lot later. They just stood out. After a certain point, we couldn't expect the first wave to just nail it from start to finish. Anyone that we felt like had pure moments of either character, we had to bring back and see what they could do on their feet. We brought those guys back in with a wave of people a ton of times and made them go through a bunch of sides and do all scenes in a way we couldn't even do normally, just to see what their stamina was and if they could stay in voice. We put them through a pretty rigorous process. They both came through rigorous casting calls. Ian was early on and Harry came after we exhausted every resource. We had multiple waves of narrowing people down. You get the idea. These two really earned the job at hand, and I'm really excited to see how Rick and Morty will change their lives. Hopefully for the better and not for the worse. And honestly, I don't think most people will notice unless they're looking out for it. People who do notice may also just assume it's the voice actors getting old. I mean, look at how much the voice for Marge Simpson has changed, despite her still being played by Julie Kovner. As far as recasts go, I'd say these were pretty good outcomes. But enough about the voices. What about the episode itself? Did How Poopy Got His Poop Back live up to the other season premieres?
I mean, it's alright,
Did you have high hopes from the title? It's not like Rick and Morty hasn't had a normal episode as a season premiere before, Season 5 being the biggest example of, you could have stuck this one anywhere and nothing would really change. But unfortunately, nothing about this episode stood out to me. Mr. Poopybutthole has hit a new low after his wife left him and took their son with her, leaving him a drunken, unemployed mess who's been crashing at the Smiths. So Rick is tasked with intervening and getting PB back on his feet. And he gets a little help from his friends. While it's cool seeing Squanchy, Birdperson, and Gearhead again, Glenn was there too, I guess, I was left wanting more out of this premise. I mean, the boys are back in town! Yet we didn't really get a crazy high-concept adventure or a chance for any of these characters to really open up, which would have been warranted given how much Rick and Birdperson have gone through. You just get a story you've seen 100 times before. Be sad? Get trashed with the bros. Try to get your ex back and learn a lesson. There wasn't really a spin on it, and we know Rick and Morty loves poking fun at cliches. So why didn't they here? It wasn't a bad episode by any means, but I already don't see myself coming back to it anytime soon. Although I did appreciate Hugh Jackman tagging along for the ride. That man can do no wrong.
Ackman is Australian slang for shit. Don't look it up.
Now don't get me wrong. There were plenty of things I liked. Rick initially wants to scare Mr. Poopybutthole into leaving with Robo-Ghost, creating a robot, giving it sentience and literal unfinished business before killing it, turning the robot into a ghost.
Ghost.
Ooh, that's interesting. You kind of gave him a little power by mentioning him.
This is actually a cool spin on Ghost, giving it a sci-fi edge. I wish the episode did more with this. There is a scene later in the episode where Robo-Ghost teases Rick about his own unfinished business, which in the context of the episode is clearly talking about Mr. Poopybutthole, but in the grand scheme of things, we were all reminded of Rick Prime, right? Speaking of which, Prime's mentioned at the beginning of this episode, but looking at the past few seasons, I don't expect a major follow-up on him until the end of the season. Whether that be a single episode or a two-part finale like with season 5. I also dug the little bit of animation we got when Rick's tripping balls. Again, I wish we had more of that. And the honey rave was the coolest part of their rager. I love how the bee people look. They have pretty cool designs. And the feeding pill gag got a good chuckle out of me, even though it went on a bit too long. And I also got a good laugh out of PB telling Goldkarna,
You didn't see season 4, episode 3!
Because he was a bit of a beast in that episode. And ironically, that episode also had a celebrity appearance, voiced by the celebrity himself with Elon Tusk. This cameo aged like shit. We find out that this nigga Mr. Poopybutthole's name is Wayne? Wayne Poopybutthole? Huh? It makes me hope our boy has a comeback because a nigga named Wayne can't be going out like this. Now, I can't ignore what this episode tells us about Rick, which is that he wants to be a better friend to the people in his life. And although we know he tends to avoid confrontation and emotional vulnerability, something else Rick has always struggled with is being honest to the people he cares about. A part of Rick's persona is being blunt and saying whatever's on its mind no matter who it pisses off. But we've seen numerous times that this isn't always the case. He's not above hiding harsh truths from people in an attempt to spare their feelings. You have the whole Frumpyland thing with Beth. He downplayed Morty's massacre and look who's purging now, chalking it up to the Purginol in the Yummy Yums candy bar, when in reality, those bars were now made Purginol free. He covered up the tragic truth about Pissmaster to the man's daughter because he knows it would have destroyed her. And now here with Mr. Poopybutthole, he struggles with ripping the band-aid off and giving him a proper intervention, trying to lure him into a false sense of security and then continuing the charade once he thinks it's PB's birthday. He doesn't want to crush his feelings and ruin his birthday with an intervention. I think this will be a big theme of the season, Rick learning to be more honest with people even if the truth hurts them. Real friends don't hide secrets, no matter how much those secrets may hurt. And I think Rick will have to recognize that in order to take down Prime, he's gonna need as much help as he can get, making amends with those he's had a falling out with. Something that goes against Rick Prime's entire worldview, where Rick should be selfish and only look out for themselves. Now, this is 100% a nitpick, but I'm disappointed in how Squanchy and Birddaughter were handled in this episode. When we last saw Squanchy, he was facing off against the Galactic Federation after they crashed Birdperson's wedding, never to be seen again. Flash forward to season 4's premiere, and there's a death crystal that shows Rick getting torn in half by a Federation-controlled Squanchy. Juicy stuff. Too bad we're never gonna see it, because Squanchy appears here A-okay. Chalk it up to swapping universes last season, but this felt like an idea the writers had at one point before losing interest in it completely and sweeping it under the rug, leaving it as a cool Easter egg and nothing more. Similarly, we learned Birdperson had a daughter in space prison. Are we going to get an action-packed adventure where Rick and Morty help break her out? Nope! Birdperson got her out on his own, off-screen. They don't even tell us how. Maybe you could argue that's the point. Birdperson hasn't fully welcomed Rick back into his life yet, and thus kept him at arm's length when it came to something as personal as his daughter. All he tells Rick at the end of the episode is, "It was canonical seeing you." So they're definitely still at a weird place. As for Birddaughter's actual characterization, she's going through an emo phase, which makes sense given her mom is dead and she spent her childhood in prison, yikes. But they don't do anything interesting with that setup, they just go for easy jokes. It's only disappointing because I know we could have had a banger episode, properly introducing her as a character. But hopefully they'll use her and Squanchy in meaningful ways moving forward. I want to see them on adventures. Overall, this was an alright episode. The lack of a B story definitely made it drag, and the story was pretty by the numbers. And although it was out of the team's control, I definitely don't think it was the best episode for a season premiere, given the circumstances. And I'm not saying it needed to be story intensive or a game changer. We honestly just needed one that featured more of Morty. He barely appeared in the episode, so Harry Belden didn't get much time to shine. Luckily, next week looks a lot more Morty focused, as it seems like he's on a solo adventure, so I hope the lad gets to shine his talents then. I'm just hoping this season has more ambitious one-off episodes. I don't need every episode to be like Rick Shank Redemption, Tales from the Citadel, Starmort, Rick Mirai Jack, or Solarix. But I do want more episodes like Total Rickall, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, or the Vat of Acid episode. Episodes that are character-driven while also incorporating cool sci-fi concepts, instead of just feeling like the run-of-the-mill sitcom with a sci-fi aesthetic. But these are just my thoughts, and as always, I want to hear yours. Did you like this episode, or did you think it was just kinda mid? How about the new voices? What's your take on Ian Cardoni or Harry Belden so far? Let us know in the comments down below, and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at OstrikVods. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. See ya!